This is Swim, Success with Music. Yo, what's going on, people? It's been a minute. This is Walt. I am your music coach. You're back from vacation, traveler. You're picking up my instrument for the first time in a little while, handler. Yo, that's not good at all. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Let's dive in. Again, what's up, everybody? This is Walt. This is Success with Music. This is a podcast for musicians, singers, songwriters, music students, everyone who's about that music life. Yo, let's get into our show for today. Hey, I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't noticed, for those of you who are subscribed to the podcast, that we've been away for a few weeks, a couple of weeks or so. I was overseas doing some traveling. I had one episode that was recorded while I was out of the country. You can check that out in the podcast episodes. But yeah, man, it's good to be back. It's a brand new year. It's January. You know, most of us are ready to get after our music dreams and things like that. And for me, you know, I'm excited about trying to push into some new areas with my music this year, venture into some new things. And I actually am in a new house, for those of you who have been following my exploits there. So that's pretty cool. And I'm also trying to set up a brand new home studio in my new place here. So I'm hoping to actually build out a room and just go all the way with it here and just really design it from the ground up. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. It's been pretty crazy here the last few weeks, but wanted to get back after it and just really just jump back in and provide content that will be helpful for you guys out there. And so I want to brief you today in our interesting topic section. I want to brief you guys on some things that I saw while I was out traveling here in the last few weeks. So build me a time machine, exchange the best. So throughout December, I had a chance to go over to Europe, Paris, had a chance to go down to South Africa and also to a smaller country called Lesotho over the break. And it was really amazing to hear music from all around the world. But here's the interesting thing. All of the songs that you hear on the radio or you hear online or you hear in commercials or when you're in the mall, they're playing music and things like that. It's crazy to just go thousands of miles overseas, go into different cultures where they're speaking different languages and hear the same tracks no matter where you go. So it's just kind of weird that way. So it kind of makes you feel like the world is quite small. When, again, you're hearing songs that are on the charts, they're literally global. They're everywhere. But on the other side of it, the interesting thing is that there are places that I've traveled to where the music is really all about that local or that country's feel and heritage and style and cultures. It's just very interesting. So for instance, the biggest example is when I was in South Africa, you would hear different styles of music from all around the world. Again, things you'll hear in the charts. But one thing that I found to be very, very interesting is that they place a high premium on local artists, local styles, local genres. And so, yeah, influences from all around the world will kind of seep into different parts of different cultures. So, for instance, you know, you will have people adapt different styles or different production methods or whatever. Again, that's common everywhere, but they seem to really protect the styles that belong to them. And there are quite a few genres there that I was completely impressed by and blown away by. I wish I could play some of that for you guys today. Unfortunately, I didn't come armed with any examples, but the point is they really protect and develop and really own those genres that are specific to their cultures. And the sweet part about them doing that is when they do it so much and so well that they now have a place on the world stage as really owning that particular genre. And guess what will happen? Eventually, other people will start to copy the style that they've refined so much, some of the rhythm patterns, some of the lyrical structures and choice of instrumentation is just phenomenal. And there's just a certain part of their music life that they do not allow others to encroach on. They dominate there. And it's just amazing to hear and amazing to see. And not only that, there's choreography that goes with it, like dance and a certain type of expression in terms of just, how you perform and things like that. It's just, again, it's something that I would highly encourage you to just look into, not necessarily South Africa per se, but just genres from different parts of the world. Just observe. You'll learn so much by just taking the time to immerse yourself in that. It'd be great if you can travel overseas, but some of us, are not in a position to do that per se. So just being able to maybe listen to genres from around the world and just kind of watch these subcultures, if you will, and how they really own their genres. You see it everywhere with stuff like, with the K-pop stuff over in Korea. And I'm talking about some of the music there in South Africa with the Kwaito music and some of the other types of local music. And you can just go around the globe, but it's just amazing when certain styles are developed, these homegrown styles are developed, and they have this following. You can, again, just learn a lot musically from that. Now, having said all of that, I want to get into our main topic for today's discussion. And actually, I want to tie that to some of the things I just mentioned to you about just going around different places and seeing certain styles and how these different groups of people just really embraced their styles of music. And I want to kind of use that as an example to talk about you as a musician. And here is the main question for today's episode. What do you do when you really, in your heart, don't embrace your own musical talent, your own musicality, or your own style, or how you sound, or your level of playing ability, however you want to characterize it? What do you do where deep down in your heart, you're really not sold on yourself as a musician? I don't know about you, but this is a question that I've had to struggle with from time to time in being a musician, where, I'm not really feeling my playing ability, or I'm not feeling my composition ability, or what have you. And many of us, if we had to be honest, at some point or the other, we've kind of stumbled into that. Now, I understand with musicians, a lot of times it's all about being arrogant and acting like they're the best thing in the world. But if you had to be honest with yourself, some of us, again, struggle with the idea of feeling like, you know what? I'm not that sweet. I wish my vocals were better. I wish, I had this type of skill, or I had this kind of range, or I can play this style of music, or I can sight read, or pick an area, as I mentioned. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's very important that you improve as a musician. So I'm not saying that you should just settle. If you want to improve, obviously you need to practice and get your lessons and get a coach and things like that, read and study. I'm all for that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about basically beating yourself up for simply not being someone else, or beating yourself up because you feel somewhat inadequate based off of the giftings that you have, essentially. So, I don't think that's a good thing to do. And maybe you knew I was going to say that, but I think that we beat ourselves up more than necessary. Again, there's nothing wrong with pushing yourself, and there's nothing wrong with challenging yourself. But I do think there's something wrong with you internally feeling this perpetual inadequacy. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that you should really, really place a priority, or not a priority, that's the wrong word. I think you should place a premium on the giftings and the skills that you have. Sure, they may not be the same as someone else's, but what you have to offer, if you have any musical talent whatsoever, it's valid. It's valuable. So what I want to do is give you a few things or strategies or thoughts or ideas with respect to really pushing against or pushing back on the feeling of inadequacy or feeling that you're not really measuring up as a musician. Because I think that having those persistent or incessant feelings, they actually eat away at the skill that you do have. You don't really operate in your skills in confidence. So here are 3 things that I feel that you have to be incredibly vigilant about as a musician so that you don't self-sabotage in your musical career. All right. So here's the first one. Stop imitating people. That's the first tip that I have for you, the main strategy for you really reacquiring confidence in your own musical ability. Stop imitating people. And let me qualify this, or let me give you a bit more detail on this. I understand that in music, we all, to a certain degree, kind of mimic one another. We all have certain things that we borrow from one another. If you remember back in that episode that we talked about music theory, how we only have 12 tones in the Western music system. If you only have 12 tones to work with, chances are you're going to run into the same combination of tones from time to time. So there's really nothing new under the sun with respect to music. I'm not talking about that type of imitation. What I'm talking about is looking at a specific artist or a musician or a performer and deciding that, you know what, I am going to pattern myself after that person. I'm going to sing just like them. I'm going to wear the same clothes. I'm going to do the same runs. I'm going to do the same facial expressions, whatever. You got to be careful about that, because the moment you try to emulate someone to that degree, you are a secondary thing, or you're a knockoff. You're not the original. And in many instances, being a copy is far worse than being an original. That's just how the world works. So the moment you try to be, and just pick an artist, just pick anyone that you really love or like. If you find yourself really trying to pattern your career or pattern your sensibilities or style after that person, you're going to wind up being a fake, and you're going to look disingenuous in doing so. And when you don't get the same results as that artist, when you don't get the same type of accolades or what have you, it can be incredibly discouraging. Now, again, I want to make a delineation or make a separation about what I'm saying here. If you are mimicking, let's say, the business sense of someone, that's fine. If you're mimicking, let's say, this guy or gal, she practices several hours a day, that's cool. This person, they got a vocal coach, and all right, that's fine. I don't mind you imitating someone in that way. Again, that's not what I'm talking about. You can emulate successful strategies, but what I'm saying is you're literally styling yourself after someone. If you're doing that, that will wind up making you hate your music, because you will always have a bar that you cannot live up to, or a standard that you cannot live up to, if you are literally trying to make yourself into that person that you admire so much. All right, so let's move on to the second point here. If you're completely over your own musical style and abilities and sound, it could be that you're trying to fit into trends. So if you, for instance, are listening to a lot of pop music, hypothetically, and there's certain stylings and there's certain level of production, and it seems like all the big artists, they're going in a certain direction with a certain sound or whatever it may be, and you decide that, hey, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to use the trap beats. I'm going to try to use the little light auto tune or whatever it may be. And you wind up not sounding as good. That can be very discouraging. So don't be a genre chaser. And I know it's very easy as a musician to follow that road, because you think, wow, everyone is going this way. This person has gone platinum or sold, so many units by doing this or partnering with this person and they have this particular type of sound. And it's very easy to say, hey, you know what? If I want to be successful,